everyone, Stephen Bedard here, and I want to talk to you about Christians, churches, COVID-19, government, lockdowns, and all of those things. And basically, I want to ask the question, should Christians feel obligated to disobey regulations by the government that would seek to close churches or impose restrictions in terms of masks or of physical distancing, amount of people in the building, and all of those things? Is it the Christian's duty to say no to the government, to refuse to follow their guidelines, and to do church the way they want to do church? And this is a pretty touchy subject right now, and there's some pretty strong feelings on both sides. There are those who say, whatever the government says, then that's what we're going to do. If they tell us to close, we will close. If they tell us to open, we will open. And then there are those who say, forget that. We are going to continue to do church as normal. I've seen video of very large churches where you see people definitely not physically distanced, shoulder to shoulder, no masks, and having church even though there's a lockdown going on and there are government rules about closing the church buildings. And of course, there are people in the middle as well. So how do we sort through this? Well, there's all kinds of things going on here. I see that one of the things that's happening is there is a conflict between people's desire for religious liberty and also thoughts about what will keep people safe. And so for some people, maybe they don't think that COVID-19 is that serious. There are still people saying it's just like a mild flu. It is no big deal. And they see any regulation by the government as an attempt to shut down the churches or at least to take away our rights. And so I can't tell you what to believe. I can only share my own thoughts. So first of all, I take COVID-19 very seriously. I've known people that have had it, and I have known of people who have died from it, relatives of people that I personally am aware of who have died from COVID-19. And I also know a lot of people who are in the medical profession, whether doctors or nurses, and I am completely convinced that this is a very serious thing. And as a person who is immunocompromised, I take a medication that is meant to lower my immune system, and so that puts me in the high risk category. I take these things very seriously. But what about this threat to religious liberty? What about this threat to our freedom of religious expression? Well, I actually don't see that there is a threat at all. I could imagine how there could be a threat if the government had said, we are going to close the churches, but the casinos and the strip clubs and all other places that might have a lot of people in them, they can stay open. We're just going to target churches. I'd also want to be looking to see, are they just closing Christian churches? Are they closing mosques? Are they closing synagogues? Are they closing temples? What else is going on? What I've seen is that they are trying to shut down during times of lockdown, because not every place is in lockdown. But when there are lockdowns, that they are closing things that are bringing a lot of people together that seem to have high risk for spreading. I've never seen anything in what the government has done, and I'm speaking as a Canadian, but as an observer of what happens in the United States as well. I've never got the sense that they were targeting Christians or targeting churches or targeting people of faith as if they were just using COVID-19 as an excuse to shut down the churches. I am sure that there are people who believe that that is what is happening, but I really have seen no hint of that. The other thing that I would comment on is that the the government has not stopped us from spreading the Christian message. They have not said, we need you to close the churches, and we also need you to stop having online services. You need to stop putting things on YouTube and Facebook. There's been none of that. There has been a lot of freedom. And in fact, in many ways, the message is going out more. We are having people at our particular church, people are watching it from out of town. My son, who lives about an hour and a half away, watches our service every week, and he's never really been able to be a part of our church community. And so having the online services has not stopped the Christian message at all. In many ways, this has been an opportunity for us to spread it further. And a lot of churches have been pushed to increase their technology area, and to be able to learn, to gain new expertise, and to be able to get online in a stronger way. So I really do not see this as being an issue. But what about that passage in Hebrews that says that we are not to neglect the gathering of ourselves? Well, of course, that is an important thing. But that passage is not saying that we have to gather as a large group of a congregation. It is not saying that. It's talking about Christian fellowship, and it's warning people who are getting isolated from each other, and they're no longer being encouraged by other Christians, and so are becoming weak in their faith. We have to remember that passage has nothing to do with church buildings being open, because there were no church buildings at the time that Hebrews was written. And for the entire first century and the earliest years of the church, there were no church buildings. People gathered in homes. They were always in small groups. And so it really does not speak to what we think of as church, as this organized congregation within one particular church building. That is not what Hebrews is talking about. If you are being isolated, if you have no encouragement from other Christians in any way, that is a problem, and you need to get back into some kind of fellowship, whatever that might look like. But really, the writer of Hebrews there is not anticipating any of the technology that we have in terms of online services and phone calls and all of those things. That's not being talked about. So if you can have Christian encouragement and teaching and fellowship through online measures, then that is great. If you know people who don't have access to that, give them a phone call. Have a word of prayer with them on the phone. There is all kinds of things that we can do. I've really been concerned by a lot of the rhetoric that has been going on. I saw someone actually shared on my Facebook about comparing the regulations about COVID-19 to the Holocaust, and comparing the masks that we wear to the yellow cloth stars that the Jews had to wear, and the isolation of people today to protect from COVID-19 as the isolation of movement of Jews during World War II by the Nazis. And I think that is absolutely offensive and foolish to compare what the government is doing to try to stop the spread of COVID-19 to the Holocaust. It boggles my mind that there are people that think that. I would encourage you, if you think that, to go and find an elderly Jewish person and say to them that you feel that what you are currently going through, having to wear a mask in stores, when you do grocery shopping, going to church, and not having as many people around you as you would like, that you feel that you're pretty much in the same position as the Jews during the Holocaust. I'd encourage you to talk to an elderly Jewish person and see how much compassion that they will give you for your suffering, in that, because it is not the same thing at all. My other concern that I have about all of this is that is the impression that non-Christians are getting from the way some Christian leaders and some congregations are taking the position that they're taking in willing to gather in large groups and not wear masks and to refuse to comply with government regulations. To me, the message that they're sending is not that they are brave, it's not that they're courageous, it's that it is more important for them to get their own way than it is for the safety of the people in their community. That's really what the message, I think, is coming across. Now, if you are watching this and you're someone who is totally against the government regulations, you might think, no, that's not our intent at all. But it's not just about your intent. It's about what the perception is of what you are doing. Think about how this affects your Christian witness. Are non-Christians seeing what you're doing, and are they going to be drawn to your congregation? Are they going to be drawn to your message? Are they going to be drawn to Jesus by the way that you are responding in this? Just to conclude, I'll tell you what we have done at our congregation. We do comply with the government regulations. We wear masks. We physically distance in the sanctuary. But not only that, we have closed the church building during lockdowns, and we are in a lockdown right when I am recording this. But we even took it one step further. During the first lockdown, we actually closed the week before we had to, because we felt that's what it was the best to do. We weren't just closing down only because the government told us we had to. We were doing it because we thought it was the loving thing to do. And we're currently in our second lockdown. And again, we chose to not have an in-person Christmas Eve service. We could have. We didn't have to close until Boxing Day, the day after Christmas Day. But we chose to do that because if we thought it was unsafe to gather on the December 27th, then it was just as unsafe to do it on December 24th. We wanted to look out for our people. We wanted to make sure that they stayed safe, and we wanted to do the right thing. And so that's the position that we have taken. I just encourage you to think about what you're doing, why you're doing it, and what are the perception of the people watching what you are doing. And how can we as Christians who sometimes disagree about how to respond, how can we disagree in healthy and respectful ways? And I've tried to do that here. I'm generally trying to be gentle and respectful towards other views. I will admit that I am not all that respectful of the view of comparing wearing masks to the Holocaust. I really have a big problem with that. But in general, I do have respect that people have convictions, that they're willing to take a stand, even though I think maybe their convictions are in the wrong place. I do respect them, but please think deeply about these things. Thank you for watching this. Consider subscribing to the channel and visit me at my website, stephenjbedard.com. God bless you all and stay safe.